Let's,
we can, yes, Thomas?
if we could favor, if the council members have questions, Seth said that he was possibly, anyway, Seth, if you have a question, or
Really have any
Kay
questions, I'll
Daniels.
make 2 remarks.
Okay.
So in
Does
case
he
anyone...
need a microphone?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. No, that he's taking.
Sure. I just have 2 remarks, no real questions. So I'm Seth Grimes, I'm a Takoma Park City Councilor for Ward 1. The first remark is that I don't think anyone on the council is afraid of looking ridiculous or needing to hide behind anyone else. That's not the consideration here. You don't live here. So I hope you'll just take my word for that. The second thing I have to remark is, I think one of you said something to this effect. There's a little story that probably most of you have heard. There's the drunk guy who loses his keys on the dark night, and then he starts looking underneath the light post, and someone comes along and asks him, "Is this where you lost your keys?" And he says, "No, I lost them over there, but there's no light over there. I can't see to look for my keys." Well, isn't this the same thing? We each directly voted for the members of Congress, if we chose to turn out and vote, which I did, and presumably most of you did, or Mikulski, Cardin, Chris Van Hollen, Barack Obama, or John McCain, if you prefer him, that it's our individual voices in the form of votes that elected them. Is it not the more proper tactic to voice our opinions to them directly? I realize it's not either or, one can look for both, but what I'm saying is that the emphasis of this effort, it doesn't appear proper for the city to be doing it, it appears proper for the citizens to do it. And I'll just give you one example there, which is that I went out, along with many thousands of other people, 4 or 5 months ago, to surround the White House about the Keystone XL pipeline. I went out, that was the appropriate thing to do. The decision was Obama's to make, so we expressed our opinion as citizens directly to Obama. To me, that's the way to attack this issue.
So can with all due respect, we're living in a time where sort of no social structure is off limits for politics and advocacy anymore. And I think the idea that we, because we're progressives, are going to be sort of purist about how we use our local government structures is both tying one of our hands behind our backs and maybe in some ways profoundly out of step with some past American traditions where you certainly, I'm not a native Marylander, but the New England town meeting system I know well has been expressing its opinion on issues large and small pretty much ever since there have been New England town meetings. So we have these social structures for reasons, and I don't know that it's the case that it's more or less proper to use government structures. And as someone who does advocacy work at the national level, I want all the tools, I want all the arrows in my quiver, I want all the tools in my toolbox, if you want a non-military metaphor. And again, because not just votes count in politics, but money and conversation also count, what I can tell you is that elected officials respect things that other elected officials choose to do.
And just a couple pieces on this too, and this can be rhetorical, or if you want to answer it, feel free. Why would you run for office if you feel that way? You ran for office to represent your community, not to resign its interests in the face of its abuses by the other branches of government. That's your job, is to represent your community. And so this idea that you just resign its interests because other branches of the government are acting invasively with respect to your community's rights just seems incompatible in some respects with your oath of office. I would say that of every member of Congress who voted for the bill, and the president too, right? The oath of office is to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And the domestic enemies of the Constitution are running the federal government. And so, you know, I just think this is part of the system of checks and balances. It is absolutely proper for this community to raise its voice. I would say it's almost, I would say it's almost improper not to raise your voice. And I'd also, you know, I think the question is about just recognizing the system of checks and balances. Local governments have a role to play on national questions. You know, that's true whether you're talking about, you know, your local land use decisions comprising a whole across the different jurisdictions. That's true if you're expressing opinions on whether or not you want to see nuclear weapons in the world. You know, this community's standards and its history of making its voice heard is absolutely a legacy to be proud of, not run from, especially in this day and age. I think that, you know, with Congress doubling down on Bush-era abuses and the political folks' judgment in the White House trumping that of the national security folks who wanted to protect the Constitution, I think it falls to you to defend it. I mean, the question is now that the ball is in your court, what do you do about it? And the idea of just, you know, turning a blind eye because the decision supposedly got made somewhere else, I just think that's a very passive way to treat your own rights.
Okay, I know several people have questions. Kay, did you want to make a comment as a council member before we take some
As
questions?
surprising as this sounds, I'm in a listening mode. I know for anybody who knows me, no, I don't listen often, but I want to hear what everyone has to say. This is incredibly interesting
Okay.
and profound.
First questions.
Yeah.